and welcome to this video on jscodeshift. In this video, we'll be discussing the basics of jscodeshift and how it can be useful in running code migrations. First, let's talk about what jscodeshift is. So basically, jscodeshift is a tool that allows you to perform large-scale code transformations. Uh, it's built on popular AST, which is abstract syntax tree manipulation library, uh, called Recast. I think it's from Facebook, so it uses Recast. Now, one of the main uses of JS Code Shift is code migration. So let's say you want to use a new language feature, or you want to refactor your code base, or you want to follow some new coding style. You can use JS Code Shift to run those migrations. So in this session, we'll try to write some small migrations, and we'll see those if we could learn something from it. So let's get started. So I have a small React tab here, where which is created using create React tab, and it does nothing, but it just imports a header, and this is a header component which just takes a title prop and renders it. Now let's say if I want to change my title prop to label, and for the same, if I want to run the migration, how can I do it? So if I save this piece of code at this point of time, my application is breaking, it is not rendering anything. So I need to update here label, and once I do that, it should start working again. But this is a small example. If you have a huge code base with multiple instances of header, then it can get a bit cumbersome to update all those instances, and that's why we'll be using JS code shift here to migrate these instances. So let's revert this change back to title, and we'll use now JS code shift to write our migration. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create a folder called migration, or let's call it transforms, and in here I'll add a file for header migration, but I'll just call it header.js. Okay, now let's grab this sample code which we want to update, and to write our transform code we'll be using AST Explorer. This is a very nice tool which you can use to write your transforms. So I'll just go ahead and paste my code here. From transforms I'll choose JS code shift, and we should be able to write our transformers here. So essentially what we want to do is we want to check for the header component, and if it has a title prop, we need to update it to the label. So let's find this header component first. So if I click on header on the right hand side, you can see I have something called JS identifier whose name is header. So if I further look up, I see something called JSX opening element. The type is JSX opening elements. So let's first filter it by JSX opening element. If you want to understand this syntax, it is doing nothing but when you will run the JS code shift command, basically it will pass all the files from the source, whatever path that you are giving, it will pass each file, and then you'll have an instance of JS code shift API, which you can run your transformations over. So you'll get your files, then you can use the API, and you can do the transformations and then write it back. So we'll get rid of all of these. and from here what we'll say, I want to find j dot this, where name dot name is header. So let's say this name is header, header. Then let's say for each, for now let's print if we are going on the right track or not. So I'll just add a console log here, console log path. Let's inspect it. Yeah, I have a node path. Okay, so now that I have node path and it's pointing to the right value, let's try to find out what are the attributes it has. So we'll try to destructure it, path dot node, and let's get the attributes. We'll log attributes. Okay, so we have JSX attributes here. Name is title here. Okay, so let's grab that one. We'll find the index of that attribute. So we'll say, let's say old prop index, and we'll do attributes dot find let's click on this title here and see how we can find it. So it's a JSX identifier name, and name dot should be title. So we'll see attribute, let's say find index. We'll need to find the index. We'll say a, and then a, and a dot name should be there, and a dot again name dot name should be title. And if this is there, let's see if we so we have it. Now we need to check if this exists, then only we want to update. So if this is greater than this, then only we want to do something. All right, now let's also check if label already exists. So we'll check it against label. Let's call it new prop index. Let's log it. So it doesn't exist. So we'll add a condition here. If this is equal to -1, that means if it doesn't exist, then only do something. Then what do we need to do? We need to replace the old attribute with the new one. So old prop index is equal to j dot let's find out what is it again. I think it's called JSX identifier. Yeah, JSX attribute, I believe. Yes, it's JSX attribute. So we'll add it. We'll add a JSX attribute to it. J dot JSX attribute. No default value is given to the name. Yeah, so we need to give it a name. So the name should be JSX. Where is the title? JSX identifier. So let's call it this j dot, this should be small, JSX identifier, and we'll give it a name of label. and then it should have value of the old prop itself, dot value. So now if you see in my transforms, the title got replaced with label. So now we know that my code is working. So let's grab this piece of code and put it in our transform, save it. Now to run the migration, you need to install jscodeshift. Installation is pretty easy. You just need to do npm install jscodeshift. I have already done it to save the time, so I already have in my node modules. What I'll do is I'll directly go ahead and run the migration. I will run it from node modules. If you have installed globally, you can directly run jscodeshift. So I'll say node 1 second, node modules jscode shift bin jscode shift, and then you need to tell it the transform path with /t hyphen t, and then path should be transform header, and then you need to tell on which path you need to run. So I want to run it on my source, so I'll say /src, and if I run it, it did run some migration. So let's see what has changed. So if you see title got changed to the label. Okay, so and now my application should also be in working state. Yeah, so this should work. So yeah, this is how you can run migrations using CodeShift. There can be much more complex scenarios, but using this AST exploratory you should be able to do it.